Oh boy. Well, this weekend has been kind of crazy. It started Friday when we started hearing about this spy balloon that was flying over Montana. And I've done quite a bit of reading about this, and I was hoping I could kind of present what I've managed to learn so far. But to give you a brief summary of what happened, most of you might have heard, or maybe you don't know. On Friday, we learned that there was a balloon spotted over China, or spotted over Montana. Turns out it's from China. Was about 200 feet tall and had about a 2,000-pound intelligence package underneath it. By the looks of things, it had a bunch of satellites and some sort of equipment on it that I don't really know what it is. Anyhow, Saturday, sometime today, it got shot down off the coast of South Carolina by an F-22 Raptor. Anyhow, it's kind of crazy that to consider that the fact that the balloon even got into the U.S. in the first place. I mean, why isn't it that this thing wasn't shot down as soon as was detected? Was it possible to have shot it down? I think it was, but I'm going to be going into that in a few minutes. But that's a brief summary of what we have so far. We're going to start off with this first article from CNN Politics. I don't normally care for CNN, but the things they write, sometimes it's fairly decent. Anyhow, this article is from a man named Paul LeBlanc, writing for CNN. All right. The fallout over the decision to shoot down a suspected Chinese surveillance balloon over the Atlantic Ocean this weekend presents new logistical and diplomatic priorities for the United States. In the immediate term, there's the debris field to scour across an area spread over 7 miles, according to a senior military official. There's also the matter of a second surveillance balloon being tracked over Central and South America that bears similar technical characteristics to the one that flew over the U.S., a senior U.S. administration official told CNN over the weekend. Politically, questions surrounding the balloon: should it have been shot down earlier? Was it able to collect any intelligence? What should the U.S. response be? Loom large over President Joe Biden as he prepares for his State of the Union address Tuesday evening. Yeah, that's probably going to come up since that just happened. I'm not sure how we could avoid it. Continue on. The response in Washington has unfolded predictably, with Republicans calling Biden's response delayed and Democrats rushing to defend the White House's approach. Yeah, that figures. Personally, I lean towards this thing could have been shot down earlier. I don't know why it took so long to be shot down, but we're about to go into that. So that's a convenient way or a short way to basically introduce this whole topic to you. The article goes on talking about the debris. Basically, the U.S. wants to pick up all that debris to try and analyze it and figure out what exactly this thing was, which makes sense. China, of course, is upset. They're calling what the U.S. did an overreaction somewhere in here. Oh yeah, there's a second balloon that's over Latin America. Yeah, here we are. China's foreign ministry has accused the U.S. of overreacting and seriously violating international practice. That's a load of crap. Look, we already have spy satellites. I'm not sure why they need a balloon. Well, probably because the balloon is cheaper. It doesn't have to be as high as a satellite, so therefore the same technology package can be a lot closer to the Earth itself, giving you a better image of whatever it is they want to be looking at. Personal side story. When I was a kid, about 11 years old, my family took a huge vacation around the country. We went up into South Dakota, and then we steered out towards Yellowstone and then came back through Moab, Utah. We were going to stop through somewhere else to see some caves, but the caves were flooded at the time. Anyhow, getting back to the point, while we were in South Dakota, we visited a Minuteman II missile silo. And the point of that is there are missile silos in and around that northern part of the country where we have ICBMs in silos. I've heard that apparently Montana has a lot of these things. South Dakota is right next to Montana. It's not that far away, so similar conditions. So yeah, as to what this balloon could have been spying on, I'd lean towards maybe they were looking at our missile silos. I'm not sure why they'd want to look at them, but they could have taken a look. I wouldn't be surprised if they did. Probably should have shot that thing down a lot sooner, but it's a little late now. The thing's already crossed the entire country at this point. Anyhow, let's go over the timeline a little bit. Tuesday, General Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, informed the Biden admin that there was a Chinese balloon floating over Montana, and that it appeared to be on a clear path to the continental United States, differentiating it from previous Chinese craft. Tuesday. That's weird. By Tuesday, it should have been somewhere else, but he's informed. But in this timeline, he's informing them that it's over Montana. Pretty sure on Tuesday we would be. Tuesday should have been January the 28th, unless I'm mistaken. Brad, maybe I am. Wednesday. Yeah, because it was spotted over Montana on a Friday. It got shot down on a Saturday. Sunday was already over. Monday, Newsday, people start talking about it. Anyhow, Wednesday, when options were presented to Biden, he directed his military leadership to shoot down the balloon as soon as they viewed it as a viable option, given concerns about risks to people and property on the ground. Shoot down, Biden told his military advisors. He would later recount to reporters. That is the right response. It should be shot down. I just think it should have been shot down before it got to Montana. Oh, yeah. I also seem to recall that it might have loitered over Montana for a bit, but I don't know, man. Was it really loitering like a week ago? For how many days? Anyhow, I'll get to why I'm a little bit confused in just a second. So let's switch over. So I read a couple of Hill articles that I followed their sources back to this transcript coming out of a meeting with the U.S. Department of Defense. Basically, you have you have a senior defense official and you have a senior military official who are informing members of the press some stuff about the balloon. Personally, this article is all right. I really wish you could get the names of who these officials are. You only get the names of the press members who ask questions. Beyond that, I haven't been able to find much else. But this is from the U.S. Department of Defense, their official website. So let's scroll down to the main point I want to bring up from this thing. Hang on. Just Control F. January. All right. So you have a question from Dan Lamoth, Washington Post. Thank you for your time today. I was hoping we could backtrack a bit. Can you explain a bit when you first became aware of the surveillance balloon, whether it was over the Aleutians, at what point you had eyes on it? And can you elaborate a bit on, I guess, in terms of recovering debris? Will this require diving? Will this require only scooping things from smaller vessels? How will this work in practical terms? Main point that I want to bring up from this question: when did the U.S. first know about it? So, we have our unnamed senior defense official responding. This balloon entered the Alaska Joint Operating Area on January 28th, having entered U.S. Air Defense Identification Zone north of the Aleutian Islands, and therefore passing into sovereign U.S. airspace. This thing is in U.S. airspace, January 28th. On January 30th, it enters Canadian airspace. So that means the 28th and the 29th, 24 hours, maximum 48 hours, this thing was in U.S. airspace. Why did we not shoot this thing down? I mean, it's over the Aleutian Islands. And in case you don't know, the Aleutian Islands are a big chain of islands off the coast of Alaska. I don't think I have them pulled up, but let's pull them up real quick. Aleutian Islands. We'll go to maps. There. It's over the Aleutian Islands. Tons of ocean out here. I find it pretty hard to believe that it's not possible to have shot this thing down when you detect it. This is the Aleutian Islands. It's a chain of islands that pretty much connects all the way out over here to Russia, basically, running all the way across the Bering Sea. Now, I'm not sure what point over the Aleutian Islands it was detected, but come on. Should have plenty of opportunity to shoot this thing down. Over water. And you could even spend some time watching it and observing and figuring out what it can do. Anyhow, let's get back to it. So, we discovered the thing when it's over Montana, right? It re-entered U.S. airspace over northern Idaho January 31st. And then I guess it just kind of loiters there for a while. And eventually, Friday, the February 4th or 3rd? Yeah, I think it was February 3rd. That's when we spot the thing hanging out over Montana, or when people start seeing it. And so, for comparison, I want to present this image from Ballotpedia. This is how much public land is in Montana. Now, according to Google, it's roughly 30 million acres of state and federal lands. It's nearly a third of the state. Means people are not living there if it's state and federal land. Now, their concern, as I said, was to avoid destruction to people and property, right? That's what I read in this article. We just control F real quick. People and yeah. We also assessed it did not pose a military or kinetic threat to U.S. people or property on the ground. All right. So you want to make sure that when it comes down, it doesn't hit anyone or anything. Don't want to shoot it down over a city, obviously. So let's go back to our map of public land, right here. Now, what path did the balloon take? According to the New York Post, it enters over here around the Aleutian Islands, plenty of ocean between these Aleutian Islands, and when you start to hit Alaska, there's an entire gulf or whatever the region is, goes right down the middle of Alaska, over Canada, and down into Montana, right? Now, you can't exactly see the state boundaries around here, but this looks relatively close to where these public lands are. Now, obviously, you have things like you have various Indian reservations that are marked in red here. You can't really shoot down over that because, again, people living there. Don't do that. Don't shoot it down over people. But all this space of public land, where is it? There's a Fox News article basically saying that it's a 7 square mile, like a 7 mile radius that this thing fell down in. You can fit that in that area. Let's see, so this one? Nah, all right. Well, I read somewhere that it was a 7 mile area. I think it's in this one too. Control F. 7. Yep, senior military official. The senior military official would like to add something there, just to put some context to the risk. So the debris field is at least 7 miles spread out, so you can have an understanding. It doesn't just fall down, it would have fallen in at least a 7 mile kind of a radius that you'd have to clear and ensure safety of U.S. citizens and also infrastructure. No, that's not it. There we go. There's our map. 7 mile radius. This is a huge amount of space. You definitely could have fit it in there. The fact that it wasn't shot down, pretty disappointing to me. I mean, they were scrambling fighter jets when people started learning about this, and then they decided to stand down. But they knew about it all the back over the Aleutian Islands. They could have shot it down over there, which is pretty disappointing that they didn't, if you ask me. And now, here's another map. We got Alaska over here. Down here on the bottom left. Alaska, all that red, federal and state land. You could have shot it down, and if you want to review, there's our path, right down the middle of Alaska. Then, of course, you have the risk of, well, can you get to a plane to it? Well, my answer is, yes, you can. Here you have the map of the state of Alaska. There's the city of Fairbanks. A few miles south of that, you have an Air Force base. At that Air Force base, you have F-16 fighter jets. F-16s are plenty capable of shooting this kind of thing down. They have a 2,600-mile range, according to Google. I'm not going to dispute that. Sounds pretty reasonable for a fighter jet. You can fly it up, shoot down the balloon, lands on federal land, nothing to worry about, and you can go collect the bits and pieces afterwards. No need for divers. But let's see, where is it? How many? 354th Tactical Wing. So this is from the page for the Eielson Air Force Base. Where is it? 354th Tactical Wing. No, is that it? Fighter Wing. Strategic Wing. Basically, 57th Fighter Group. 18th Fighter. All right, there we go. The 18th Aggressor Squadron is a subordinate unit in the 354th Fighter Wing based at the Eielson Air Force Base in Alaska and flies the Block 30 General Dynamics F-16C/D aircraft. So that means they have F-16Cs and F-16Ds. Just two different models. C is earlier than the D. The D is the later model. But basic point is we have a fighter jet capable of going up and shooting these things down. I mean, you had an entire Air Force base there. Maybe if you didn't even want to use F-16s, you'd have something else you could rely off of. It could have been shot down. It was deliberately chosen not to. Why? So they could observe it. Okay, great. But it's a spy balloon, according to them. Go back to our Defense Department briefing. Control F. Spy. All right, it's not pulling up. All right, well, What I do know is I found somewhere that said it's a spy balloon. It is not a friendly balloon. It's not weather. Let's try intelligence. Yeah, oh well. Basically, what these guys have said is that it's high altitude surveillance balloon coming from U.S. Department of Defense. So we have a surveillance balloon flying over the U.S. We knew about it when it was over the Aleutian Islands. It crosses more ocean, and we did not shoot it down. I'm finding this very bizarre to comprehend. What's even more concerning is the fact that it's happened before. It's happened during Trump's presidency, apparently. Now, we have this article from TMZ basically saying that Trump officials have basically said, no, that's not true. We have John Ratcliffe, Mark Esper, Mike Pompeo. He's the ex-Secretary of State, former Secretary of Defense, Director of National Intelligence, basically saying it's not true. It hasn't happened. I don't know. I think it has been. I pulled up this news story from Fox News. Chinese spy balloon crashed off Hawaii coast 4 months ago, U.S. officials say. This was published February 5th, 2023. Look, it's kind of weird that all this stuff about balloons is just now coming out. These other officials saying no. I'm not sure what to believe, to be honest. Politicians, bureaucrats, government officials, they have a tendency to lie. So do you trust them? I don't know. On one hand, it sounds like, with the case of Trump, maybe these people are saying, no, it never happened to protect themselves and their reputation, say it's fine. But maybe Biden's also making stuff up to make it sound less bad. Like, see, this is not anything out of the ordinary. The fact that he let it go so far across U.S. space. Or maybe there's a third route. Maybe all these things did in fact happen, but maybe they weren't being told by their underlings. I'd like to, in case you had never heard of the story, it's from Defense One. The story is titled, Outgoing Syria Envoy Admits Hiding U.S. Troop Numbers, Praises Trump's Mideast Record. So here's the gist of the story, right? This story is coming out around November 12th or 14th in the year 2020. It's after the election. Trump's lost the vote, but they're still in dispute. And basically, this article comes out about this outgoing envoy to Syria. And here's a quote from him. We were always playing shell games. That's the end of the quote, I guess. Point is, the U.S. had more troops in Syria than what Trump was aware of. They were playing shell games in order to hide the number of troops. So, taking the same theory and applying it out towards this Chinese spy balloon stuff, is it possible that these ex-Trump officials just never knew about it and were never told about it? Maybe. In the case of the one that was spotted over Hawaii, it crashed on its own, supposedly. Although I find that kind of hard to believe. That you have this spy balloon, it has its own intelligence package flying over Hawaii, and then it just crashes? Like, it made it all the way from China, presumably, and then crashes before it manages to really get over the targets that it would want to spy on. I mean, Hawaii has naval bases and other military bases. I'm sure there's stuff to spy on there, but it crashes off the coast. Maybe it saw what it needed to see and then crashed itself. I don't know. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Unless the odds that it would happen to crash over U.S. territory seem iffy. It would make more sense if it would be at least brought back to China's waters and then intentionally crash. But even so, it would make more sense to try and recover it if possible. But you wouldn't. Why would it crash over U.S. off the coast of Hawaii? That I don't know. If it was shot down off the coast of Hawaii, that would make more sense to me. But yeah, so that's me looking into this, basically saying, like, is there any chance that this is true? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I'm not really sure to make of it. But how do these balloons get in the first place? Well, in the previous ones, apparently there's a bit of a blind spot, I guess you can say, for whatever system we use. According to this guy, Van Herk, see, who is he? Air Force General Glenn Van Herk, head of the U.S. American Aerospace Defense Command and Northern Command, said the latest balloon was 200 feet tall and payload weighed a couple thousand pounds. Didn't provide details on previous balloons. Yeah, always love it when they don't really provide details. Makes it hard to trust them. I will tell you that we did not detect those threats, and that's a domain awareness gap. So that's basically just a bunch of lingo for we can't really see them come in. But you saw the one that came in over the Aleutian Islands. Why? Do you have radar bases out there that just happened to pick it up and it got too close and it was easier to see? Maybe. Maybe that's how it happened. How did it get off the coast of Hawaii? I can only if you'd have a radar base in Alaska to monitor, I don't know, maybe it was built back in the Cold War, World War II to monitor incoming planes or missiles. You'd probably do something similar in Hawaii. It's basically in the middle of the Pacific. It'd be nice to know when things are coming. So when it comes to this, I'm just like, really? Is this true? I don't know. I have a hard time. Sometimes I have a hard time buying what these people are saying, and I don't really know who to trust and who's telling the truth and how much truth there is in what they're saying, because a lot of times people just tell you a partial truth and just leave the rest of the truth unsaid to help lead you down a rabbit hole or a logical path to believe what they want you to believe. But in the meantime, U.S. wants to pick up the remains of the balloon it did shoot down, the one that we confirm is real because people looked up and they saw the balloon. That's the other strange thing. Why did this thing just get spotted over Montana? Why wasn't it spotted by humans, ordinary civilians before? The military seemed to know about it. I don't know. I can't really make sense of it. But thanks for listening if you did. It was a bit longer than I really wanted to go on the subject, but I thought it was worth at least going into some of the stuff that's been going on about it. I don't know. It's not good for national security that China managed to get this balloon in so far. It's definitely a worrying possibility. But, I try to include the articles that I talk about so that you can see them and look them up for yourselves. I encourage you to do so and read things I didn't say about it or that I didn't see. There's always more information out there, and the more information you have, the smarter you are, or at least the more well-informed you are. And that can help you make more, I guess you could say, responsible decisions. Anyhow, thanks for listening. Have a good one. Bye.